special meeting, April 19th, 2023, 5:30. And we'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and Lori, could you call roll, please?
Colin Burnell.
Here.
Matthew Phipps.
Here.
Stacy Selner.
Here.
Matthew Spalding.
Here.
Carrie Trask. Tony Gonstalica. And Kathy Willis. Here. Thank you.
Okay, and did anyone have a public input sheet that they did not turn in? Okay. So no public input. I wanted to just introduce to those of you that are here, these are our candidates elect that will start next week at our organizational meeting, Chris Abel and Viv Hansen. So Matthew Phipps, and if you want to just go around and say hello. Kathy Willis.
Oh, Kathy Willis.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. Matthew Spalding.
And Jamie is somewhere.
And Tony Gonstalica is on phone.
Yes. Yep. Okay. So what I wanted to call our meeting for today was just to talk about if anyone had any questions about our contract. I'm going to turn it over to Jim just to give a little information, and I wanted Chris and Viv here as well just to ask any questions at all that they might have. I know that Jim and his team would like to execute the contract soon so we can get the materials going. So
well, at the last contract, I made reference that was in the final stages of executing the contract. Actually, we're in the process of implementing when you consider all the training, what we're doing for new positions and hiring. So it's already in play, but we can't get material, we can't get training until we finalize this contract. But there was a question that came up whether or not the board had to approve that. And I said that they didn't have to approve it. They had already approved it, back in February, and we're just finalizing it, as we would any other curriculum or service. However, I still went back and checked with the attorney, and they reassured us based on policy, based on laws, you're acting according to your policies within the parameters of the law. Angela, I think, summarized that in the communication that I attached. But it was also an opportunity just to make sure, that there was no confusion in the public, in terms of how we're proceeding, and another update about how we're doing. And we're hoping that we could finalize the contract yet this week. Right now, when we finalize that, we're looking at training. There are some trade-offs in the contract. So right now, we're about within $10,000 of our original estimate. But really, our contract is less than what the original estimate was, because our numbers there, we were just extrapolating from some schools versus actual. Okay, and then when we got those actual numbers, what it provided us an opportunity was to make sure that we offered the curriculum also to our preschool. So that's really good. We're also looking at, while we have 3 staff members from every school, so the 6 elementaries and the 2 middle schools, who will be trained in a leadership role. Okay, the principal, the SFA person, in one other. In some central office, we wanted to make sure we have enough, because we have some new administrators, to make sure we're well equipped, to do this. And this training is typically in Baltimore. It's their institute that they have, okay, where they're training the leaders. And because of our numbers, they're open to possibly actually moving and doing it here, which means we could even, include that much more, even opportunities for board members to see what this looks like. So that's what it sounded promising. There was we haven't finalized that yet, but it's in play. We just wanted to make sure everybody's on the same page and that we're equipping our new board members to the best of our ability. And so what I've done is I just pulled back all the information we've been spending the last 6 months or so reviewing, more than once, including the information that's on the website and, the Q&As and how we've continued to populate that. And then as we reported out, we have various problem-solving teams formed, from curriculum, to scheduling. I mean, with the writing curriculum, for example, so we indicated, as you recall, we reported out that we would need a writing curriculum no matter which one we are looking at. But again, remember, from apples to apples, this is more than just a reading program. It's a whole school reform initiative. It's meant to ensure that you're doing all what you need to do within a school for kids to succeed. You know, not just with literacy, which is the core, but across. And, you know, we've heard various reports on that from our teachers who came back and how that looks. And as we've reported out, they're actually starting already to try to model that themselves, just based on what they've seen, with very positive return already. And it's just that we're taking some of their ideas and trying to already. So anyways, I wasn't planning to review all the material, you know, but again, providing an opportunity to make sure that we're all on the same page, we're proceeding, but wanting to make sure our new board members come up to speed as soon as they can, so they can engage in this continued process of raising student achievement levels. So that's essentially where we're at, unless there's specific questions. Try to include enough information there that I know
wanted
Chris,
everybody
you
to,
had asked for some additional information, not knowing what you've seen before. So we try to populate that with information to make it easy to, see what's.
and I, I just wanted everyone to look at the contract, and Angela also did that memo in there about kind of what we were presented on the night of that we adopted SFA. And then this is more the formalized contract and the numbers. And really the stuff that needs to be yet worked out is legalese.
Yeah, more technical, you know, what happens if you terminate the contract? What happens if somebody defaults? All the things that you would, want to, make sure that you're there. You know, if this is a fly-by-night organization, you want to make sure you have your interests protected. We know it's not, but again, what was great, and Angela, correct me if I'm wrong, when we were sitting down with our review over what the attorneys had provided us, and we were reviewing it with SFA, they were agreeable to almost everything that we're saying, probably because they've already seen those types of adjustments that would be requested from most school districts.
Yeah, and they had mentioned in the initial, when they offered the contract, it said, often we have things we have to adjust by state. So like our attorney said, we'd like to adjust this to match our state statute instead of theirs, things like that. Not having an automatic renewal that we have to opt in. So we have to form like after the initial period. So it's not that it just, we could sort of have the deadline slip by, so things like that. So very comfortable.
Any questions about the actual contract and what's in it? All right, any other questions about SFA before we move on to our next item? Yeah.
I've been in 9 of the 10 schools.
Yes.
Last week, this day.
Yeah. Nice.
And I think the program can be successful. How do we get ownership? How do we get buy-in from many of the people right now who need to support the program, the staff and teachers? There seems to be quite a bit of, they're not sure. Is there a plan to help them get there to
Yeah, and I think actually
believe in the program?
Yeah. And I think Jamie, did you hear Biff's question?
I think I got the gist of it. It was kind of cutting in and out for me. But I think that's a great question. And I think the way it works with any program is that you do need staff buy-in. What we've done is we've created a number of teams of leadership. And I believe it was just last week we did the interviews for the Success for All coordinators that are in each and every building. We've built some leadership in going on the site visits so that people understand exactly what we're doing. But Biff, I think we would be remiss in saying that we don't have a ways to go there. And for some of our teachers.
We can hear you, Jamie.
Okay, well, it looks frozen to me. So I wasn't.
No, you're good. You're good.
I thought my computer's timed me out because I'm talking too long. But for some of our teachers, I think there's a lot of hesitancy because there's the unknown. So what we've tried to do is bring them in, have them take a look at the materials, and we will continue to provide more professional development yet this year. because most of our teachers are, what I'm hearing them say is, I don't want to start the fall unprepared. And so now it's really incumbent upon us to make sure they feel comfortable in delivering these materials and working within the systems.
And everything that I've found too, or at least what I've gathered, a lot of the buy-in is also going to be helped with all the support that they're going to be given. One of the major attractions to this whole school reform in SFA, in my opinion, was all of the support and all of the people that are going to be there to help them out. So a lot of that fear of the unknown will be lifted a little bit off their shoulders, especially once it starts rolling.
And one of the things that we did our last professional development day, everyone was exposed to the general of SFA. Even Lee did one up at the high school, you know, so that the teachers know there as well what's going on. And then all the schools now have been able to see, hold, touch the material. And then there's also we've added a professional development day on May 19th.
Yeah, our makeup day.
Yeah, which is was supposed to be a snow day, but we're going to use it as a day. And between the last professional development and this new one is where we will collect any other of these concerns and questions to also spend on that day. You know, I get a couple phone calls from teachers as well. And I think a lot of it too was waiting on the referendum. You know, what are we going to do as far as staffing goes? And the schedule, you know, that was another big one, is what's that going to look like? So a lot of anxiety that I've seen is about implementation, and the solution groups that were put together are coming up with all of those. And like I said before, these are for principals and faculty that are part of these. They're not the administrative team on those coming up with those solutions, which is great.
And we also have, for example, what's really nice is that the whole thing is a distributed leadership model, which engages leadership teams at every school, but we're all going to be doing the same thing. You know, so this is really great with the sharing. But even like one of the things I came and attended was Dean Slager, you know, was doing an open house on the SFA material on a Saturday, you know, and it had good turnout, and it was really great, you know, because right now already our principals and our faculty are even who have had more exposure are already filling some of the leadership roles in that distributed leadership model to help others see and answer questions. So still ways to go, as Jamie indicated, but you know, I think with how much we've spent looking and examining this, we're further ahead than most school districts would be taking this on.
And if you hear of anything, as when you're out at schools and stuff, let us know of where those, you know, areas are, so we can, you know, address those, because they're there, you know, and rightly so, a big change. Any other questions at all, Chris?
Well, obviously and because it was to the contract itself, and this really isn't about the contracting. Although I do want to say, I'm very happy to see some of the things I saw in the contract about the automatic renewal, the notification times, all that you're working with them to get, and they're amenable to finding terms that are working for both sides, because that clearly was all written to help them.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, which most
Blame
people
them,
would be.
that's-
You
right.
represent
You
your
write the
best interest
contract,
when
you write it for your side, unless you're an idiot, right? You know, it seems that you're working on some of the things that to me jump out that are not contract related, on the practicalities of making it work with the scheduling and making that schedule work across the district, and letting people know as early as possible what some of the ramifications of that are, some of the practicalities, because they need to know that. And as somebody, as an elementary school teacher who was not surprised to come in 2 weeks before the year started and be told, here's what we're doing this year. This is certainly a better forward-looking thing to say, what difficulties do you see? And I hope that's going to be encouraged to come from all the schools. what difficulties do you see and how can we address those? Because every school has their, as you're finding, has their own way of doing things, and some of that needs to be adjusted going forward.
And we're also, you know, what's happening through this whole process, because it's a whole school thing, it's not a component part. We're finding so much, it's helping us in our review, and Jamie might want to respond to this, including how many schedules, how many periods a teacher has scheduled now versus what they're going to have in the future, and whether or not they've got prep time. I mean, we're finding all kinds of things where we haven't been efficient, or we're spending money, we're not using things, you know, to really redirect these funds, redirect positions even, you know, to evolve them. You know, we're recognizing we might need some transition time, so we are working with people, you know, to get everything in a supportive role where we're succeeding, you know, versus just having sometimes warm bodies that are beneficial, but not necessarily focused in the way that we get the return that will help us.
So let's make a mark that every penny that we save goes back into curriculum and instruction.
Wow.
And this was the, you know, referencing though, there is a lot more about what happens is when this is working and we do start trying these things. As Jamie has reported, we haven't reviewed social studies in 20 years. I mean, we've neglected a lot of curriculum areas. This happens to be a critical one, a foundational one. But, you know, we have to make sure we're addressing the entire curriculum.
I appreciate you taking the time to, and Angela bringing us up to speed on the contract and, you know, what made, if any differences that might have been there. Okay, just the other thing that I wanted to, since I got us all together, you know, next week we're going to have our organizational meeting, and that's going to be right before we have our special meeting. And one of the things that we've been talking about is a new governance model. And so I have a book for you guys that we've been talking about for about, gosh, probably since September. It's just an idea of a different governance model than.
So I already have homework.
You do, you already have homework? I don't know if Colin ever read it, so. So we have not, as a board, we have not decided that this would be something that we want to change to, but it's definitely something that's been in the works. So it's going to be on the agenda. So at that special meeting, so I wanted you guys just to be, you know, aware of it. I think we've spent a couple of meetings. So if you go back and look at any of them where that was an agenda item, you'll kind of see some of the pros and cons of what we were talking about as well. You know, so so then after we get that organizational part done, and then we go into, so we won't make the committee assignments won't be right away until we kind of decide what we want to do with this. Do we want to go forward with this, or do we want to stick with what we're doing? And so that'll be just a discussion item on the agenda.
And just like SFA, we even discussed maybe a transitional way we might get there. Right. So what would happen was there was increased interest. The more we were proceeding this year with accomplishing things, the more this model made sense, because it kind of supports more of a tighter administrative board engagement, you know, with kind of a results orientation. But that the board is an organization of the organization.
Right.
And its efficiency and effectiveness is important.
We did get to talk to the author today and just get a couple ideas from him too, so that was good. But anyway, I just didn't want anyone to be blindsided about that.
Area you're gonna want to look at is like chapter 8. It's 91, I believe, is the page.
Colin has read it. Everybody has their. Everybody has their pages.
Yeah, memorized. Yep, cornered, chalked up.
Well, one of the advantages to the model that you're looking to is onboarding, so you're involved in all of the areas, but just instead of some of them. So it would help you have a stronger knowledge base.
And then it also increases the transparency as well too, so that way then people attend less meetings and see more.
Right.
And on to that onboarding, it really highlights that this is really a board role, not an administrative role. It's really a partnership, you know, to the extent that the board really should be thinking about how it onboards new board members in terms of what they're doing to move the district forward in the governance model.
So really, those were the only items that I wanted to talk about before next week. Future meeting dates, obviously, we're going to meet on Wednesday at 6 o'clock for our meeting, right? 5:30 though, before we're going to do our organizational meeting. And that's all I have. Any questions at all or anything? I don't need it. Oh, yes, you do have a meeting.
Well,
Tell me about your.
I won't be at the meeting, but
Right.
the ad hoc behavior committee will be meeting next week, Thursday.
Okay.
At Gym.
Okay.
At 4:15 at the district office.
Perfect. And I believe, now that I think about it, Monday, is Monday, PTO? Do a PTO meeting Monday?
Geez, do
You mind?
I'm-
It's been a while.
is it the first Monday
It's the last
of
one.
the last?
You have one and one.
Looks like I might have to get back and look what's next week and get on the agenda.
Lori will tell you.
Lori will tell you.
That's something.
I was just thinking, Gloria's gonna have to let them know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I thought I saw it somewhere. That's why I had wrote it down. Anyway, so that is it. So I just need a motion in a second.
Motion adjourned.
Motion by
Second,
Matthew Spalding,
world's shortest board meeting.
Matthew Phipps. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, guys.
Oh, no, this is
This is-
30 minutes on 5 minutes.
Regular board meeting.
This is expedient.
Where's this problem coming from? My wife.
Johnson.
I don't know, it's-
Signed it.
She makes my wife smile, I'll tell you that.
Angela, I'm supposed to verify that all
This
those.
is good.
enjoy the conversation.
You verified them?
Yes.
I didn't put telephone and number on there. I figured they can call the district office and get through such a-
The one we have to scan for attorney. and then she just sends out.
I'm not gonna- How come I never had to do any of those before?
You want to forget to get it.
It's a full term.
Yeah, it's for the whole year.